And what's up, guys? Duval LeBlanc here. So, this is going to be the beginning of my Microsoft AZ-900 Learn With Me series. So, welcome. So, this Microsoft AZ-900 series is basically going to be me showing you guys what the Microsoft Learn module for the AZ-900 is offering. I'm also going to show you my Notion notes that I took simultaneously. If you're ever going to try and learn something, it's highly recommended that you take notes and then you read back the notes that you took. I basically copied down what it was showing so that I can have it personally, and then I go in and I sometimes add a little stuff to it and everything, just to show you guys what I'm doing. And then I'm gonna explain a little bit of what I learned and what Microsoft is trying to, I guess, instruct the viewer on, right? So with that being said, we're gonna start with the first part of the AZ-900, and it's going to be on describe cloud concepts. That's the first module. So let's get it started. All right, so this is the AZ-900 Microsoft Learn Hub, and it's basically where you are going to be informed on the credential itself, what it requires, the pricing of the exam, and the skills measured in the module and the course and stuff. So if you look, this is my Notion notes for this, and on the left side here you can see it. I grouped all of these based on the hierarchy and course of which I'm going to do. I'm personally going to be taking 4. I want to take 2 are required, I'd say. The 104 and the 305. If you're going into cloud, it's pretty much, if you're trying to get employed, if you're trying to get a career out of this, you need to take those. The other 2 I'm just taking because I want to take them, and I wanted to learn. I want to know a little more on the foundational side of the Azure stuff. So I'm taking it just because I want to. But the other 2 are basically the real hard ones, or not hard. Well, the real ones that you have to know, and so they're going to be a little bit more difficult than the beginner ones, right? So the first one is the AZ-900 that I have, and each of my notes, I went ahead and I created pages for each type of topic. And in the AZ-900, there's 3 paths, and 3 of them are just the cloud computing that you have to describe the benefits of using cloud services, and describe cloud service types. These are the 3 modules in cloud concepts. The 3 topics that the AZ-900 covers are shown here, and it's describe cloud concepts, describe Azure architecture and services, and describe Azure management and governance. So these are the 3 parts of the AZ-900 series that you have to know. Each of them are specific topics that you're going to have to know as well. So the first one we're going to do is the describe cloud concepts. And if you look here, this is kind of like my notes of how I did it. I definitely recommend you guys use Notion. If you're going to learn anything, whether it be this or whatever you choose to dedicate your time to learning, you're going to have to take notes. So it's highly crucial that you take notes so that you can it gets your writing down something after listening is a better way for your mind to put concrete foundation that you are understanding and remembering this whatever topic you're doing. So let's start here with the cloud concepts. It's gonna say this is the first learning path in the series, Microsoft Azure Fundamentals, describe cloud concepts, and basically I got it from this. We'll go a little bit over this. This is the actual Microsoft Learn side. As you can see, shows you the skills measured, the percentages of each of them. So the cloud concepts is 25 to 30% of the exam. This is important to know. These do change and get updated. As you can see, this was last updated in July. So They usually just change the percentage of maybe how much they want to add on the exam for each part. The second one is describe Azure architecture and services, and the last is describe Azure management and governance. And these are the 3 paths. So this is like just further resources for you to know. But let's get started with the first one, Microsoft Azure Fundamentals, describe cloud concepts. So as you can see, it says new to the cloud. So it has like beginner, administrator, developer. These are all tags that are associated with this module. There's also like a little level system for you. So I'm level 4 and I have 1825, and for me to go up another level I need 5299. So each time you do something you gain a certain amount of XP and points and stuff like that. It's kind of cool. But he has a little explanation of what to expect in this particular module. It's 3 things: describe cloud computing, describe the benefits of using cloud services, and describe cloud service types. As you can see here, I did that in my notes as well. I wrote that down. So describe cloud computing has its own section of notes. Describe the benefits of this, I haven't done yet, and then I'm going to do it in a later video. And then the last one is cloud service types, and that will have its own thing as well. So for the first part, describe cloud computing. So these are my notes that I took for this, and basically it's very similar to what this is. I basically just jotted down what Microsoft had, because I want to have it for my own self, for my own notes, in case this gets changed. I have it written down, you know what I mean? So it has some learning objectives here. Upon completion of this module, you'll be able to define cloud computing, describe the shared responsibility model, define cloud modules, including public, private, and hybrid, identify appropriate use cases for each cloud model, describe the consumption-based model, and compare cloud pricing models. So it's basically showing you a little bit of what exactly is the cloud computing, what it's used for, which parts of it are appropriate for a particular model, and the pricing of however you choose to consume the service. So let's start. Introduction to Microsoft Azure Fundamentals. So introduction to Microsoft Azure Fundamentals, just explaining a little bit of it. What is Azure Fundamentals? It's a series. Azure Fundamentals is a series of 3 learning paths that familiarize you with Azure and its many services and features. So in this part, it's kind of just an introduction. I learned a bit about it because, you don't really understand the cloud if you don't really interact with it in this type of fashion. If you never worked, maybe your field of work, you don't really interact with the cloud. Maybe you're in the company you work for is just on premises, they're just local, and you don't really deal with the outside internet or the cloud and stuff. So maybe you're not familiar with it, but this kind of just explains a little bit of how it's in, what it's used for, what it is, and maybe why you should take it, right? So that's pretty much all it's describing here. And in my notes, I kind of did that as well. One thing that I did write down from this is, it says Microsoft Azure is a cloud computing platform with an ever-expanding set of services to help you build solutions to meet your business goals. And I noticed that when I go in and I look at a lot of Azure cloud stuff, and maybe other people discussing it, they use the word solutions a lot. And I wrote, this is just my notes, I wrote, solutions seem to be the term they use to define the created outcome of a utilized Azure cloud service or resource. If you use Azure resources or services to build something and solve an issue, then it would be defined as a solution. So that's just pretty much my 2 cents on that. And I still haven't, it's still kind of abstract in my head of what it is, but I wrote it down because I felt it was important, because I see that word solutions thrown around a lot when it comes to the cloud and stuff. So here it says, like, whether you're interested in compute, network, and your storage devices, learning about cloud security, best practices, or exploring governance and management options, think of Azure Fundamentals as your curated guide to Azure. So it's just that, a curated guide to what Azure has to offer. So another thing that was important that I found from the Learn was, it says Azure, the portal, and there is a there's many exercises provide. I'm sorry. Many exercises provide a temporary Azure portal environment called the Sandbox, which allows you to practice creating cloud resources for free at your own pace. I didn't realize, so this is my notes that I wrote. I didn't realize they had a sandbox. I studied so many quizzes and they never mentioned that. I wonder if this is a new feature, or maybe I just missed this. So this is just something I wrote where I went over a lot of cloud stuff through here, through other apps, and I don't ever remember them mentioning the sandbox. So I found that interesting and I just wrote that down. So the next part is, why should I take it? Why should you take the Azure Fundamentals? A lot of times people will say this exam and this certification isn't necessary, and it really isn't in a sense if you're going to take the 104, which I am going to take, because the way that you're using the service, the management of networking, the identities of things, the storage, like the compute instances, all of that stuff, like in the AZ-104 kind of goes over that. And so for you to do the AZ-104, you kind of don't necessarily need the 900, but if you want to understand it better before you take the exam, it's definitely, I would say it's necessary. So yeah, so we're going to just go ahead and go to the next part. All right, so the next part is Introduction to Cloud Computing. So in this module, you'll be introduced to general cloud concepts. You'll start with the introduction to the cloud in general. Then you'll dive into concepts like shared responsibility, different cloud models, and explore the unique pricing method for the cloud. So it just explains that a little. And it says after completing this module, you'll be able to define cloud computing. So yeah, it's like we said before, right? I showed us that before. So that's just a little introduction. So what is cloud computing? So it's explaining to it basically cloud computing, which you can see in my notes. So I did that. So let's go to it real quick. Where did I put it here? What is cloud computing? Cloud computing is the delivery of computing over the internet. That's it. Computing services include common IT infrastructure such as VMs or virtual machines, storage, database, and networking. Cloud services also expand traditional IT offerings to include things like Internet of Things, machine learning, and artificial intelligence. So Internet of Things devices are like if you had like one of those smart toasters, or if you had like a heart rate monitor, or if you had anything that can connect to the internet, any type of peripheral device that has a network interface card that connects to the internet, that can connect to the internet. It has some maybe it has a wireless network interface that could communicate with Wi-Fi and stuff, and it goes on the internet. You can manage those things in the IoT services that Azure has. That's what it's saying. So the machine learning, that's another thing. I go over that in my AI-900 video, so definitely check that out. Same thing with the artificial intelligence, of course. So those are the other things that it offers, that it's trying. So Azure's trying to sell you that, hey, a lot of people do IoT things. So hey, we have IoT management. We also do machine learning, which is the new thing everyone's doing in artificial intelligence. So basically just, it's trying to sell itself what it can offer. So if you go here, and this is the actual site, I'm not going to watch the video. You can watch it yourself when you guys do it. Go to the next part. It says describe the shared responsibility model. So shared responsibility. So it says here, you may have heard of the shared responsibility model, but you may not understand what it means or how it impacts cloud computing. So it gives an example, and it says start with a traditional corporate data center. So this is like you go to the city and there's some building, and they have their data center on site. And it says the company is responsible for maintaining the physical space. So, if you have a building, they're responsible for building that room, that space, putting the ACs, the wiring, the electrical, the lighting, the flooring, everything that would go in there, the racks of servers. Like, they're responsible for that, the physical space, ensuring security. So, make sure nothing happens to it. Also, security of the network and stuff. And maintaining or replacing the servers if anything happens. So, if anything should happen and it needs to be swapped out, if it's burnt, or it needs to be used up, or for whatever reason it's not working, it has a failover, like RAID or whatever, stuff like that. If anything happens, they're responsible for fixing it. The IT department is responsible for maintaining all the infrastructure and software needed to keep the data center up and running. That's the job of the IT. Some places outsource that, so the IT department may just be required to maintain like the services that the infrastructure is providing. So if they like there's so many scenarios of how services can be provided. Like if you work for like a school district or something, they most of the time, depending on the level of income for that district, they'll outsource their technology services to another company, and then the company is giving them the infrastructure, so that's the infrastructure, right, as a service. So the IT department pretty much just has to control the devices themselves, and all the. They don't really have to worry about the servers, the directories and stuff, or creating it, or all. They don't really worry about that. So that's more of a infrastructure as a service. So if you look through here, this is the Learn. It explains it a little better. So if you see here in IaaS, infrastructure as a service, this service type, the responsibility of the consumer is the least. And the responsibility of the consumer is the most, and the least is the cloud provider. So the user is responsible for the operating system, network controls, applications, the identity infrastructure, accounts and identity, all of that stuff. The only thing that the cloud service provider is responsible for is the physical servers and stuff, so the hosts, the network, cabling, punch down, the racks, everything like the IDFs, MDFs, so access points, all at the physical network, right? And then the data center itself. So the cloud provider basically builds the space, gets the racks set up, all the access points, all of the cabling, the network drops that where the Ethernet goes into and stuff, the servers, the IT team for infrastructure as a service is responsible for the operating system. So if they want to have Windows Server, if they want all like the local on-premises directories, they're responsible for that. Now, for platform as a service, this is a little more trickier. So think of this. So let's go through this. So in my notes here, I wrote some good stuff. So infrastructure as a service. This is my notes. The cloud service being sold is the physical security, power, and connectivity. The consumer is only purchasing that service from the cloud provider. They are responsible for everything else. The infrastructure being sold to the consumer is the network internet, the physical host servers, and the physical data center where the physical hosts are being contained. The consumer is responsible for installing the OS on the physical host servers, the network controls, the apps, the identity/directory infrastructure, the individual accounts and identities, the devices, and all the data included. Basically, infrastructure as a service is just the empty physical host servers, physical network cabling, punch down, and data center location. Some examples of infrastructure as a service are DigitalOcean. If you guys have heard of that, they basically provide like the virtual like directory OS, so like the Windows Server 2018 or whatever they're using, and then it's a virtual image sometimes, or it could be the physical server with the OS installed. But most of the time, I feel like it would make sense that it's more virtual, so that they can have it on premises. There, they have say this is a school. All right, so let's get this in our heads, right? There's a school, and then there's a building or company that is assisting the school. So in the company has the servers, which has all of the directory software, Windows Server, if it's Duval, if it's whatever the hell it is, they are there, right? DigitalOcean is a infrastructure as a service. That's its own company that is used, and then the company can pay for DigitalOcean's infrastructure as a service to build the directory service and software in there, and then it creates all of the trees and all the things that Windows Server has, right? The directory, all the OUs, the objectional units, the group policy, all of that. It creates it in there, and then the schools use the already created directory, but the school now creates the accounts of all of the users, students, the teachers, whatever it is, right? So if we look back here, it says that the infrastructure as a service, this is in all of them though, so even in software as a service and platform as a service, infrastructure as a service, accounts and identities is the responsibility of the consumer. So in all of the scenarios of the service types, the consumer has to create the accounts of the users. It doesn't matter what it is. So that includes infrastructure as a service. So that's infrastructure as a service. So software as a service is a little easier. The cloud service being sold is the software itself. The consumer is simply purchasing software online through a server. The only responsibility the user has for this cloud service is installing, purchasing, maintaining the subscription of the service, the accounts and identities that are using the software, the devices they're being used on, and all of the data obtained from the software. The cloud and the consumer share the identity, directory infrastructure, since the consumer can't fully control it because they didn't create it themselves, and the cloud provider is not responsible for the consumer and how they choose to build their own directory. So the cloud service provider isn't responsible fully for however the user tries to create all the accounts and the directory, whatever they do, right? So examples of a software as a service: Salesforce, DocuSign, PayPal, Facebook, Zendesk, Gmail. These are all software as a service services. And the last one is platform as a service. Platform, PaaS, is a special middle ground where the consumer is paying for a platform and OS to house software containers. Since the containers require an OS to build from the consumer pays for the OS and the cloud provider is responsible, but the consumer and cloud provider share the network/application identity directory infrastructure. So if we go back to this, it shows that here. So for platform as a service, if you see here, it shows that these are blended, they're shared. So both the consumer and the service provider are responsible for identity and directory infrastructure, applications, network controls. Platform as a service, think of it as like if you work for a software startup and they're creating some type of app or something. Usually people who are developing apps, they don't need the full entirety of the OS, like of the kernel and everything. They only need a container. They need a portion of it to implement and design the software. So a lot of the times they don't need to they don't care about maintaining the OS because they don't need it. They only want Docker containers, Kubernetes, and stuff like that. So like examples of platforms as a service is GitHub, GitLab, Kubernetes, Docker, Windows, Azure, and Google App Engine. These are ones that they're concerned about the portion of the OS, not the whole thing. So they don't want to pay for having to maintain it. So in this method, you see operating system for platform as a service is on the onus of the service provider. Everything else is shared in this method. So the network controls, applications, identity, infrastructure is shared with the consumer and the service provider. But in all scenarios, the consumer is responsible for the accounts and identities, devices, and information and data. So that's pretty much this one. So let's go to the next one. All right, so the next one is define the cloud models. So what are cloud models? The cloud models define the deployment type of cloud resources. So however you choose to deploy the cloud is the cloud type, or that's it. So the three main cloud models are private, public, and hybrid. So private cloud, think of private cloud. If you go to my notes here, private cloud is basically if there was 100 servers, right, in a data center, a private cloud would be for the public. So let's take a step back. So if there's 100 servers, the public has the ability to use all 100 for the public cloud. Any one of those there is theirs to grab, right? Private is one out of those hundreds no one else touches. And not only that, no one else can touch it. That one can be installed or put into your on-site data center, can be done from the service provider's data center or a third party. But the important information to know is that for private cloud, no one else has access to the data except for the person paying for it, and they basically reserve it and it's theirs. No one else can. If the let's say that the consumer chose to deprovision it, then I believe that it's still vague to me, but if they deprovision it, I believe maybe they have to pay a price to let it go or agree that they want to wipe all the data and stuff. But for the most part, it's theirs in a way, but it's still onus of the service provider. But basically, it's just no one else. Because if you use public cloud, say I go and I make an Oracle Cloud or Azure tenant and I do something and I reserve a particular cloud server, and I deprovision it, and someone else starts up one, and the next, say the house down, they could use the one I just deprovisioned. Private is it's no one else can access it. That's pretty much it. So in this it says in my notes for private cloud, since you are basically reserving a host/server for your own needs, then it will be more costly. So you're going to pay more than the public because you're reserving this one. It's nice that you can have this installed, hosted on your own site, data center, or from the cloud, or even a third party. So that's pretty much the private cloud. Public cloud is built, controlled, and maintained by a third-party cloud provider. With a public cloud, anyone that wants to purchase cloud services can access and use resources. The general public availability is a key difference between public and private, like I explained. And hybrid is basically a combination of the two. It provides the most flexibility. Consumers determine where to run their apps. Maybe a company wants to, run their apps in the private cloud, and they put all their front end stuff on the public. That's not as crucial to them. Like they don't want their data. If they're creating a crazy app that they don't want anyone to ever get access to, and no one else touches the people in the company, then maybe they have their own private cloud. And then the website stuff, whatever, can go in the public, right? So that's pretty much public cloud. Consumers determine where to run their apps, and consumers control security, compliance, and legal requirements. So multi-cloud, which is new. So, well, let's say it's new, but whenever I studied this is something that I like to add. I never saw multi-cloud as a topic, and I just wanted to say that because I've been doing this for a minute now, and I like that since I started writing it down. I noticed that they added that in there, so it's interesting. A fourth and increasingly likely scenario is a multi-cloud scenario. In a multi-cloud scenario, you use multiple cloud providers. Pretty much it. Maybe you use different features from this one and different things from this one, or maybe you started your cloud journey with one and are in the process of migrating to a different. Regardless, in a multi-cloud environment, you deal with two or more. So, Azure Arc is a set of technologies, and I spelled that wrong. Look at that. Look at me making mistakes. See, we all make mistakes. Is a set of technologies that helps manage your cloud environment. Azure Arc can control your cloud environment, whether it's a public cloud solely on Azure. I still don't know so much about Azure Arc. I'm going to look more into that. So that's a little note. And the last part of this section is Azure VMware Solution. So what if you already established with VMware in a private cloud environment or want to migrate to a public or hybrid cloud? Azure VMware Solutions lets you run your VMware workloads in Azure with seamless integration and scalability. So that's pretty much that one. This module here, we're almost done halfway through. This is the consumption-based model. To put it simply, consumption-based model is you pay for what you use. And there's capital expenditure and operational expenditure, or OPEX. CapEx versus OPEX. Consider CapEx the upfront infrastructure costs. If you're paying for data center buildings, the cabling, punch down, all this stuff that requires you to build the capital infrastructure for the servers and stuff, that's CapEx, is upfront costs. Now, the thing about CapEx is that you do own everything, but for you to scale up, you have to buy more. And you have to, if you say your company isn't doing as well and you have to scale back down, you've wasted money on the resource that you paid for. While OPEX are the operational costs that are like monthly subscription prices. So cloud service is usually considered an operational expense. So explain it here. CapEx is typically a one-time upfront expenditure to purchase or secure tangible resources. A new building, repaving the parking lot, building a data center, or buying a company vehicle are examples of CapEx. In contrast, OPEX is spending money on services or products over time. Renting a convention center, leasing a company, or signing up for cloud services are all examples of OPEX. So the consumption-based model has many benefits, including no upfront costs, no need to purchase and manage costly infrastructure that users might not use to its full potential, the ability to pay more for resources when they're needed, and the ability to stop paying for them when they're no longer needed. So with a traditional data center, you try to estimate your future costs and needs and stuff like that. So you may end up wasting money in the long run because you may not need them down the line. So the consumption-based model is the newer kind of way. It has a form of like elasticity a bit in it because it can scale, and I'll go over elasticity later, but pretty much it's the ability to pay for what you're using, and when you're not using it, you're not paying for it. So compare cloud pricing models. It's just cloud computing is the delivery of computing services over the internet by using a pay-as-you-go pricing model. You typically pay only for the cloud service you use, which helps you plan and manage your operating costs, run your infrastructure more efficiently, and scale as your business needs to change. To put it another way, cloud computing is a way to rent compute power and storage from someone else's data center. So that's pretty much that. And we're done with that. We're going to do a quick knowledge check. So check your knowledge. Choose the best response for each question and select check your answer. What is cloud computing? Delivery of computing service over the internet, delivery of storage services over the internet, delivery of websites accessible via the internet. Obviously, it's deliver computing services over the internet. Which cloud model uses some data centers focused on providing cloud services to anyone that wants them, and some data centers that are focused on a single customer? So it's a hybrid, because it's a combination of public and private. According to the shared responsibility model, which cloud service type places the most responsibility on the customer? Infrastructure as a service. Because remember, infrastructure as a service, that shared responsibility model, the three things that the cloud provider is responsible for: the physical host, the physical data center, and the physical network. Everything else the consumer is responsible for. That includes the identity and directory services, the operating system, the applications, the accounts, the devices they use, and the data. All of that's the consumer's responsibility. So according to the shared responsibility, which cloud service type places the most responsibility on the customer? Infrastructure as a service. So check your answers. They're all right. And that's pretty much it for this training, this module. Summary: in this module, you learned about general cloud concepts. You started with things like just understanding what cloud computing is. You also learned about the shared responsibility model and how you and your cloud provider share the responsibility of keeping your information in the cloud secure. You briefly covered the differences between the cloud models: public, private, hybrid, multi. Then you wrapped up with a unit on how the cloud shifts IT spend from a capital expense to an OPEX. So you should now be able to do these things: cloud computing, shared responsibility, cloud pricing, yada 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 yada. So that's pretty much it. So we did the first module here. So let's go back to this one. Here, let's go back to the beginning. We did this. So this is completed. So as you can see, this is my version. I wrote my knowledge check in my notes. And that's pretty much it for that one. So in the next video, I'm going to start Microsoft Azure Fundamentals, describe Azure architecture and services. So with that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Please like and subscribe. I will be back with more of these. We're going to go through all of these things, all right? So hope you guys have a great day, and I'll see you guys later. Happy studying.
For now, I have faith in love, and I'll owe it all to you. I took you out, had such a lonely time.